Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. It's time for Faith to Live By with Sue Taylor.
Thank you for joining me today on Faith to Live By. This is Sue Taylor. If we are to be effective in our world today, we are to set our face like flint as Jesus did and be committed totally to Christ and His purpose in our lives. What does it mean to be totally committed? Years ago, I heard a funny story, which I'm sure most of you have heard, which is about the chicken and the pig passing by a church house. A sign outside on the marquee read, "Help feed the needy." "That's a great idea," said the chicken to the pig. "I'll give some eggs and you can give some ham." "That's easy for you," answered the pig to the chicken, "but for me, that is total commitment." God is looking for people today that will, if need be, give their lives for the sake of His purpose in this world. It may not mean primarily your physical death, but it does mean a death to the things which hinder your progress in the kingdom and in others' progress. I read a book by the great 20th century preacher A.W. Tozer, and in this book he talked of a total commitment to Christ. He said that our commitment to Christ should be an absolute attachment to Jesus Christ, and that attachment is intellectual, it is volitional, exclusive, and irrevocable. Years ago, when I came to Christ, it was a decision intellectually. To me, faith was an intelligent decision. I based my decision upon the Word of God. For His words declare that if we are to be saved from an eternal hell and separation from God, we must accept and know His Son, Jesus Christ. We know intellectually that we will not live forever in this body. We all have lost loved ones, and we know if we live long enough, we too will die. The Bible tells us that it is appointed once for man to die, and after that the judgment. So it makes absolute sense to secure our salvation from the judgment seat of Christ by getting to know Him now, by our attachment to Him. There is only one Christ, and we all have to know Him and accept Him if we are to enter His presence. Christ is not to be received with little thought, but with much thought as to how He will affect our lives once received. He is the one true Christ and Son of the living God, and we are to make our minds up that through the Scriptures we understand Him theologically. He came, He lived, He died a horrible death for you and for me. He was buried, He arose, and He is now presently at the right hand of God. Why is it so easy for us to believe the accounts of other men and women who lived and died, and we yet find it difficult to believe in Jesus? Accept Him intellectually and say, "God, I may not understand Christ totally, but I accept Him with my mind today." Then secondly, attach your will to His will. Let there be a volitional attachment to Jesus. If I am going to follow Christ, it must be a continuous act of my free will that He gave me. We cannot once we've come to Christ intellectually and by our own free will live on impulse and inspiration. We can't live on our feelings, even our religious feelings, if they don't line up with the will of God and His Word. So when I was, very young and young in the Lord, I liked the Apostle Peter because he was, very impulsive, and that kind of was like my life. I would act many times before thinking things through, and then I would have to suffer the consequences of my actions. Christians who live on their feelings are not living balanced, and they are not going to last very long. There will be dark nights and dark days sometimes along this path called life, and we had better know in whom we trust, and if we trust in our feelings only, we will be sadly disappointed and disillusioned. Tozer also said that God isn't going to take us off to heaven all wrapped up in cellophane, looking as if we ought to be hanging on a Christmas tree. God is going to take us there after He has purged us and disciplined us and dragged us through the fire and has made us strong and taught us that faith and feeling are not the same. Although our faith, thank God, does bring feelings. Thirdly, we must have an exclusive attachment to Christ in our commitment to Him. In other words, our attachment must be, and it must exclude all that is contrary to Christ and the teachings of His Word. That exclusion means we hate evil, we love righteousness. It means we flee temptation and we cling to Jesus Christ. We sometimes can't love God as holy as we should until we hate the evil that caused His Son to have to die in our place. Lastly, our attachment to Christ is to be irrevocable. Attachment, it means no turning back. Once you have decided to follow Jesus, beloved, don't turn back. Keep going on. Get in the race, stay in the race. Have God on your mind and heaven in your heart, and you will find that you will always have the faith you need to live by.
You've been listening to Faith to Live By with Sue Taylor. If you would like to write with your comments or to request a copy of this program for an $8 donation, write Sue Taylor, 10827 Highway 86 East, Neosho, Missouri, 64850. Sue Taylor is a member of the KNEO team and a keynote speaker at several church and women's events throughout the 4-state area. To book Sue for your next event, contact Sky High Radio at 417-451-5636.